Hi everyone, welcome back to Aidans Railways. It's part 2 of building the water tender for the Flying Scotsman. It's took a little bit longer than I expected to get the video up, and it's purely been delays in certain items arriving. I had hoped to have it up earlier, but it's took as long as it's took, and these things happen. There's no rush. Remember, this isn't the be all and end all. You have to make it this way. It's me showing you how I've chosen to tackle this for Aidan. It's not for my Flying Scotsman, it is for Aidan's Flying Scotsman. That's not to say I wouldn't couple it up to mine and have it running around with mine, but it is for Aidan's Flying Scotsman. So like I say, it's not a you have to do it this way. This is just how I'm doing it. You're watching it as I do it, and if you can take something away from this, if you can use any of what I do to help make it one yourself, if you choose to do so, that's great. That's absolutely brilliant. If you just want to watch this because it's enjoyable, and I do myself with other videos, with other channels, that's even better. So I'm going to go back to a number of days ago, and you'll see me pick up from the last video. Don't forget, like, comment and subscribe. If you've got any questions, get them in the comments. I'll try and help you as best I can, and hopefully, if I've done things right, there should be a list of items that I've used to actually do this. So thank you for watching, and enjoy. So there you can see I've rubbed down some filler just in a few spots where there was imperfections. Where I say imperfections, there was either a scratch or there was a gap of some description, so I've just put in some filler and rubbed it all down. I've just been putting a base coat of green on one of the sides just to see. You can just see how you can see the join mark there, and it's really just to see how visible it is. It's something I learned years ago painting cars, was to apply a bit of paint to show where the imperfections were. So I've been doing that. But what I'm going to do now is, I had thought about abandoning, I should say, the ribbing on the top, but I'm going to give something a go. What I've got here is a piece of wire. It actually came off one of these pre-wired LEDs, and it's got some small strands. Now, I'd experimented with various different sizes of the polystyrene rod, which is just like this, and it's far too prominent. I mean, I went down to 0.5 mil and it was still just too prominent. So I'm going to experiment here. I've stripped some of the insulation off, and you can see I've got some strands of wire that just show up. What I'm going to try and see about doing is I'm going to pour some super glue onto this piece of plastic card, just as a means of having some easily accessible. I'm just going to run the wire through the glue, and then I'm just going to hold it on to where I want to have this ribbing. Once it sets, I'm just going to cut it with a blade at each end, and although it's not really visible at the moment because it is really quite fine, I think once it's painted it'll be enough to just give the impression. So I'm going to give that a go, and then we'll move on, I think, to paint on this body, and then we can start doing things like transfers and such like, both on the body and on the chassis. There you go, should be able to make that out. I've took it right up to the edge of the line. At the very end, I used a cocktail stick just to pick up a tiny little droplet of the glue and just to secure it in all the corners, on the edges I should say, at the ends. I'm gonna let that dry. It's not amazing, but it's gonna give the impression, which is all I really want at the moment. I had thought about abandoning that altogether. Right, so while that dries, because I think the next stage is going to be paint. Luckily in the post, some bits and pieces have arrived. This is a set from Fox Transfers, and it's just literally the Flying Scotsman water tender pack. I'll put the link in the description. I believe it's pack FRH 4354 and 5410. Now what we've got here is, as you can see, this would be sort of like your ordinary water and coal tender, which we have here. And if you look at this top set of transfers, you can see roughly the similarities between the actual parts. There are additional parts here for the lining on the corridor ends, whether it be the front or the rear, and buffer beams as well on the front and rear beams. So we've got the lining, and there's also extra lining along the bottom as well. We've got the traditional LNER, but we've also got the 4472, exactly the same typeface and the size as well. How they are very close together, and I'm going to have to cut each one of these individually for placing onto the tender as well. There's some more spare lining. It does recommend that you cut the actual lining into manageable sizes and fit as you go. I'm going to have a look. We're going to see how I'm going to do that once we've got paint done. And we've also got this red lining for going on the actual chassis, around the axle boxes and things like that. I'm not 100% sure whether I'm going to fit that or not, but I think I'm going to give it a go and see. There isn't any on the actual ordinary tender, but that's the tender there off the Flying Scotsman that I customised for Aidan, with the smoke deflectors and the face as well from the more recent CGI series. So I've fetched that out because of one reason. Paint differs between manufacturer. It also differs when an age of a model, and not everything can be 100% accurate all the time. So when I was ordering the paint, I actually ordered two different shades. I've ordered the LNER Darlington shade, and I've ordered the LNER Doncaster shade. And when you look at the lids, you can't see an awful lot of difference. The Darlington's meant to be a bit lighter. What I actually had to do was make two swatches. So we've got the Doncaster here and we've got the Darlington here. And I'll just turn this over to make it a little bit easier. What I've actually have to do is I've had to place them up against each other to try and see which one I think is closer. Now, strictly speaking, I would have imagined it to have been Darlington green, but whether this shows up very well or not on camera, that looks an awful lot lighter than the tender is painted. Now remember, this tender is quite an older model. It's a Ringfield motored version, and you can see there it does seem a bit lighter. This is the Doncaster green, which is not yet perfect, but let's just get it in a comparison. When doing the swatches, for some reason the Doncaster actually looks closer than the Darlington. But how well that shows on camera, I'm not 100% sure. But the Doncaster definitely looks like a closer match. So I'm gonna go for the Doncaster, and I'm gonna see if it's close enough. Remember, it won't be on top of it like I've been doing here, but it will be nearby. So I've got a feeling that I'll get away with the Doncaster green for the body shell. So I'm going to let this dry a little bit longer. Make sure it's absolutely secure. It shouldn't take very long. It is super glue that I've used. It's just there to give an idea of banding anyway. once that's dried, I think I'm going to prep the surface, and then I think we'll go to paint. Now at the moment I'm not 100% sure whether I'm going to go for spray or whether I'm going to do it by hand. I may do it by hand, but if it doesn't look right, I'll stop, I'll let it dry, I'll rub it back, and then I'll try it with the spray. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect for me anyway, because this is, strictly speaking, this is for Aidan's Flying Scotsman. It was Aidan that wanted a water tender, and I'd said I would build him one. Just while I've got both tenders nearby, this will give you an impression at the moment of where we are. So we're not far off, we're getting there. I'm not 100% worried about the actual paint finish itself, because so much of these transfers are going to be all over it that it might take away from a lot of imperfections. It's not going to be brilliant. The top isn't perfect. This is simply a way in which I'm doing it just to get Aidan a water tender. I suspect if I was building one for myself, actually building one as opposed to purchasing one, I might do a couple of things a little differently with the supports inside and things like that. But this is just an ad hoc, as I'm doing it, experiment more than anything else. So if you get anything from this, that's great. So yeah, like I said, I think I'll take the shell back off and move on to paint. So I made the choice to paint it by brush. It's not too bad. You can just say in a certain light, you can just see the line there of the join, but it is, I'm not worried because of the decals. You can see there, I painted the roof up, and you can make the banding. You can just say they make the banding out, which is what I was looking for. I just wanted the impression of the banding, nothing else. So now I'm going to move on to these these particular ones anyway, to try and make it fit in as much as I can with this tender. I'm not going to run that line, although I do have it available if I wanted to, but it just wouldn't look right. What I am going to do though, however, is these lines at the bottom, I'm going to use one of them to run along the very top, to mimic the one that we have at the top of here. Obviously at this end it curls down, but that's obviously where the cab is. So this one will go straight along. After that, it's going to be a case of trying to establish how I should maybe cut this particular one to make it easier to fit. I'll just do that ad hoc as I go and see if it works. I've only got one try at it because these are the only ones I have for those lines. And I may well look into putting these beams on and the embellishments above the corridors and things like that. So I'll time lapse it and we'll see how we get on with that before I move on to things like the numbers and the embellishments on this chassis, should I choose to do that or not. I'm in two minds because obviously it hasn't got them on here, but if I do it on there, then I might pick up another set with those red embellishments just to make them match. So here we go. go. You can see I ended up taking the tender off the locomotive just to give me a bit of a guide while I was working. I'm going to let that dry. If you don't know how to do the water slide transfers and you didn't get the gist of what I was doing there, I'll put some links up the top for other videos I've done where I've done the water slide transfers. It's gone on reasonably okay. It wasn't particularly hard, but it seems to be working. I've just lightly brushed some lacquer over the top just to really seal it in place, so it's not going to move anywhere. You could just spray it from a distance. I haven't got any available at the moment, so I've just lightly brushed it over the top. I'm going to crack on with the other side, and then I'm going to come back. Okay, so while they're drying, I'm going to turn my attention to this chassis. Now, you'll remember in the pack, it also had some red lining for along the axle boxes and things like that, and I've took the decision for the minute not to fit them. It's not because they're difficult or anything like that, it's just it's not going to match the chassis to the locomotive. And what I might do is, if I choose to put the red lining on, then I'll buy another pack and I'll do the actual tender for the locomotive as well, rather than having one completely different to the other. I'd rather not. So what I need to do now is put the wheels back with the chassis, and you'll have seen earlier in the video I just gave them a quick light coat by brush with the same paint as the actual water tender. I've lightly cleaned these up a little bit, and I've also just given them a tiny bit of lubrication inside there just to help them run a little bit better. So now it's time to put them back. So there you can see, probably make out the green on the dishes of the wheels. So that is running nice and smooth. So buffer beams all painted up. We've got our D connectors, the decoupling's all there. Now it's just time to put the body back on. There we go. So let's have a look down side view and see what it looks like with the locomotive. There we have him, Flying Scotsman with both tenders. I've actually still got bits and pieces drying at the moment, but just to give you an idea, it's not the world's best job, but it is definitely going to work for Aidans Railway. I can't match that paint absolutely bang on. There's a couple of things I haven't done yet that I will do. For instance, I have got some corridor bellows still left. I think I'm going to fit one to the new water tender, so that it looks like a continuous corridor between both tenders. As you can see, this is the custom Flying Scotsman that we made for Aidan, and this is basically what the tender was for. It's not for my Flying Scotsman or anything like that, it is just for his. Even if you don't try to do this the way I have, this is just me doing it ad hoc as I was doing it. Just thought I would share it with you. I hope you take away something from this. There might be something there that might help you to do it yourself. I'll put all the information I can inside the description as to paints, where I got them from, transfers, what product code they were, all that kind of thing. To give you a rough idea, I think the paint, the transfers, the two tenders, the two donor tenders and the bits of plastic card, I think the entire I think the entire build has cost maybe just over £30. So that's mainly been the transfers. The transfers came in at I think it was about £18 with the tax. The paints were, I don't know, £3-4. Obviously there was postage as well. I've bumped it up a bit there with the £30 mark purely because of the fact that I bought both greens, even though I've only used one. The black I already had, and the plastic card was about 89p. The red I already had. The buffer beam with the D connector, that was about £2-3 I think it was, maybe a little bit more Peter's spares. And then, you know, and little odds and ends. Most of it has all been scraps. All the bits of plastic card, all that kind of stuff, apart from the actual top sheet, it's all been scraps. So even the tenders were just scrap pieces. They cost nothing. I think they were £1, £2 a piece. I might have even got one for free at one point. I can't remember. They've been lying around that long. But that's it. Two-part build, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's maybe helped you if you think about doing something like this. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for now. There's a big project coming up soon. I hope to get it started as soon as possible, and that is going to be several parts long. I won't tell you more, but it's going to be a big build. So thank you for watching, and don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and I shall see you again in the next video. Bye now.